Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world. I'm Mark Lin. Namaskar. Coming up in the next 30 minutes. Pakistan violates pause in military action within hours of reaching understanding with India. Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri calls it a breach of pact, asks Pakistan to take appropriate steps to check violations. Prime Minister Narendra Modi holds a high-level meeting at his residence following the agreement to stop firing and military actions between India and Pakistan to review the situation. India's External Affairs Minister says that the country consistently maintained a firm and uncompromising stance against terrorism and will continue to do so. Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri said that there have been repeated violations of the understanding which was arrived at with Pakistan earlier on Saturday. Briefing reporters in New Delhi, the Foreign Secretary said that the armed forces are giving an adequate and appropriate response to these violations and that New Delhi takes a very serious note of these violations.
जवाबी कार्रवाई कर रही है और इस सीमा अतिक्रमण से निपट रही है। ये अतिक्रमण अत्यंत ही निंदनीय है और पाकिस्तान इनके लिए जिम्मेदार है। हमारा मानना है कि पाकिस्तान इस स्थिति को ठीक से समझे और इस अतिक्रमण को रोकने के लिए तुरंत उचित कार्रवाई करे। सेना ने इस स्थिति पर कड़ी नजर रखी हुई है और उसे किसी भी अतिक्रमण से निपटने के लिए ठोस और सख्त कदम उठाने के लिए आदेश दे दिए गए। Good evening. For the last few hours, there have been repeated violations of the understanding arrived at earlier this evening between the Directors General of Military Operations of India and Pakistan. This is a breach of the understanding arrived at earlier today. The armed forces are giving an adequate and appropriate response to these violations, and we take very, very serious notice of these violations. We call upon Pakistan to take appropriate steps to address these violations and deal with the situation with seriousness and responsibility. The armed forces are maintaining a strong vigil on the situation. They have been given instructions to deal strongly with any instances of a repetition of the violations of the border along the international border as well as the line of control.
After over 3 days of hostilities, India and Pakistan came to an understanding on Saturday afternoon. It was Rawalpindi's DGMO who had picked up the phone and called his Indian counterpart to seek a respite from India's measured response. Anu Kaushik reports.
India and Pakistan have agreed to stop all firing after Pakistan's Director General of Military Operations initiated a call to his Indian counterpart on Monday afternoon. The statement said, and I quote, "The Director General of Military Operations of Pakistan called the Director General of Military Operations of India at 15:30 hours IST earlier today. It was agreed between them that both sides would stop all firing and military action on land and in the air and sea with effect from 1700 hours Indian Standard Time today. Instructions have been given on both sides to give effect to the understanding. The Director General of Military Operations will talk again on the 12th of May at 1200 hours.
The Director General of Military Operations of Pakistan called the Director General of Military Operations of India at 15:35 hours earlier this afternoon. It was agreed between them that both sides would stop all firing and military action on land and in the air and sea with effect from 1700 hours Indian Standard Time today. Instructions have been given on both sides to give effect to this understanding. The Directors General of Military Operations will talk again on the 12th of May at 1200 hours.
India has also been dismantling Pakistani misinformation circulating online.
Several attempts were made by Pakistan on spreading a misinformation campaign, as we have seen for the last few days. There were attempts made to say that our S-400 at a northern base was destroyed, which was completely false, and that it was destroyed by a JF-17, it was a false information. Also that the BrahMos installation was attacked and it was destroyed was false. The destruction of airfields at Srinagar, Jammu, Pathankot, Bhuj, Nalia, etc. was also a false claim. The forward ammunition dump at Chandigarh and Beas are also fit and fine, and we showed you these in the photographs in the morning briefing today. Also, there was a certain different way of miscampaign that the Pakistan conducted by its press conferences, which was conducted in a manner which were completely misleading and devoid of facts. Pakistan has been spreading fabricated allegations that the Indian armed forces have targeted mosques. Let us make this very clear here that India is a secular nation and the Indian armed forces are a reflection of our constitutional values. We hold every place of worship of all faiths in the highest regard. Our operations have been aimed exclusively at terrorist camps and facilities being used for anti-India activities. No religious sites, I repeat, no religious sites have been targeted by the Indian Armed Forces. Over the past few days, as we have seen, Pakistan has suffered very heavy and unsustainable losses after it has given us an unprovoked attack on our installations. It has suffered losses in both land and air. There has been an extensive damage to the crucial Pakistani air bases like Skardu, Sargodha, Jacobabad and Bholari. In addition, a loss of AD weapon system and radars made the defense of Pakistani airspace untenable. Across the line of control, extensive and precise damage to military infrastructure and command control centers and logistic installations. In addition to that, 2 military personnel had led to complete breakdown of its defensive and offensive capability and also Pakistani morale.
Responding to the ceasefire, External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar said, and I quote, "India has consistently maintained a firm and uncompromising stance against terrorism in all its forms and manifestations. It will continue to do so." Earlier in the day, Prime Minister Narendra Modi chaired a high-level meeting with Defence Minister Rajnath Singh, NSA Ajit Doval, Chief of Defence Staff General Anil Chauhan, and Chief of 3 Services at his residence in New Delhi. Pakistan agreed to stop all firing after the international pressure mounted. On the nights of 8th, 9th and 10th May, the Indian Armed Forces successfully intercepted Pakistani drones in multiple cities of Jammu and Kashmir and Punjab. The armed forces retaliated by destroying terrorist launch pads in Pakistan, which were used for planning and executing terror attacks against Indian civilians and security forces. On 7th May, India launched Operation Sindoor, annihilating terrorist infrastructure in Pakistan and Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir, retaliating to the Pahalgam terror attack. 5 top Jaish-e-Mohammed and Lashkar-e-Taiba terrorists were neutralized as a part of the operation. On 22nd April, Pakistan-sponsored terrorists killed 26 people, mostly tourists, in Jammu and Kashmir's Pahalgam. Bureau Report, DD India.
Well, a joint press briefing was held in New Delhi by the Ministry of External Affairs and the Indian Armed Forces following the recent India-Pakistan ceasefire agreement. Commodore Raghu Nair, Wing Commander Vyomika Singh and Colonel Sophia Qureshi, they addressed the media to outline the terms of understanding reached between the two nations. Commodore Nair stated that the Army, Navy and Air Force have been instructed to adhere to the agreement. He emphasized also that the ceasefire includes a complete halt to all military activities across land, air and sea.
You're aware there's an understanding that has been reached to stop all military activities at sea, on the air and on the land. And the Indian Navy, Indian Army and the Indian Air Force have been instructed to adhere to this understanding. Since the tragic events at Pahalgam, you're aware that our responses have been measured and very responsible. Details of these have been shared with you over the past few days through our various press briefings.
Well, India has assured that any future act of terror will be considered as an act of war against it. New Delhi will respond accordingly. This came in the wake of the recent escalation from the Pakistani side, which stopped after an understanding was reached between the two countries. The United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres has welcomed the ceasefire agreement between India and Pakistan and has termed it as a positive step towards ending the current hostilities and easing tensions. He hoped the agreement will contribute to lasting peace and foster an environment conducive to addressing broader, long-standing issues between the two countries. The United Nations stands ready to support efforts aimed at promoting peace and stability in the region. Meanwhile, security personnel at Nagrota military station in Jammu sector, they noticed suspicious movement late on Saturday night near the perimeter and also responded, triggering a brief exchange of fire with the suspect. The sentry sustained a minor injury during the incident. Security forces have launched a massive search operation in the area to track down the intruder or the intruders. And the situation remains under control as the search continues. Further details are awaited. The Home Secretary held a video conference with the Chief Secretaries of all states bordering Pakistan to ensure all civil defense preparations are completed. This video conferencing was conducted by the Home Secretary in view of the current situation. So let me bring in my colleague now, Jessica Taneja. She has the latest on the developments. Jessica, what is the broad agreement reached between India and Pakistan, and what has the Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri said about how seriously India takes this agreement, expecting Pakistan to stand by it?
That's correct, but it hasn't been the case, Mark, and we've heard from the Foreign Secretary, as you did, a short while ago, that Pakistan violated the ceasefire. Earlier in the day, there was an agreement between the two where we were given to understand that the Pakistani DGMO had called the Indian DGMO, his counterpart, and there was an agreement that there'll be a halt in the firing. But that doesn't seem to be the case. In the last few hours, what we've seen is completely different from what was agreed few hours ago. But with that said, and moving ahead, what could be expected so far, that no reports have come in of hostilities as yet. And, the drones being sent in by Pakistan are being taken down, our air defense systems are in place. And of course, the Indian military and the armed forces ensuring that an active response is given to Pakistan, especially when it comes with this level of escalation now. It's not India, as the Foreign Secretary said, the original escalator, but it is Pakistan with the Pahalgam attack who initiated this, and perhaps India's response is only to sort of in an act of self-defense, as is the case with most nations around the world.
Jessica, also explain India's assertion that any future act of terror will be considered as an act of war against it.
Well, Well, with the flow of information at this point, yes, earlier in the day we did see statements, and rightly so, in fact, because any escalation that we're expecting from the Pakistan side would result in an Indian response and an equal retaliation of if there is any misadventure planned by Pakistan at this point, especially with the uncertainty that comes with the reins that the Pakistan military holds right now and the decision making that's going into this now. You see reports coming from the Pakistani side, they seem to suggest that they haven't been any violations, because that is completely false. There are videos and people on the ground who have confirmed. So of course those false claims have been countered, not to forget the disinformation campaign that has been on for a very long time, and that's another difficult area, that we're dealing with right now, information warfare initiated by Pakistan. With that said, Mark, it's important to understand how this night progresses. So far, we haven't heard anything of the sort which would suggest that there would be a different environment altogether. But yes, the escalation from Pakistani side has not been received well. You heard from the Foreign Secretary, from the tone and the tenor, it suggested that it has certainly gone back on its words, like it has in the past as well. So this was not something new, this was not something that was not anticipated. Knowing from the previous experiences and the patterns of Pakistan military and the ISI, this was going to happen. But then, holding to your word was important as well, but that doesn't seem to be the case now.
Jessica Taneja, thanks very much. Now, the International Monetary Fund on Friday had approved a loan, releasing $1 billion and approving a new $1.4 billion a bailout, despite India's objections to Pakistan. So what happened is that India had raised concerns about the IMF giving loans to Pakistan. India had said that Pakistan has a very poor record of following IMF rules and it's likely to misuse these funds. India also warned that the money could support terrorism across borders. Pakistan has taken loans from the IMF for many years, but it's failed to fix its economy. Since 1989, in fact, the country has received money in 28 years of the last 35 years. In the last 5 years, in fact, there have been 4 bailout programs. And India said that this shows that the IMF programs in Pakistan are clearly not working. India also said that Pakistan's military controls much of the economy. Even the civilian government in power has no power. And a UN report in 2021 said that the military businesses are the biggest in Pakistan. The army now plays a big role in Pakistan's investment council as well. You're watching DD India Live. Now let's get you the sports news. Ashish Kumar is India's most decorated gymnast. He shot to fame in the 2010 Commonwealth Games, winning 2 medals there and a bronze medal as well at the Asian Games. And today he's a member of the Khelo India Talent Identification and Development Scheme. So DD India correspondent Narayan Singh spoke to Ashish, who called the Khelo India a great platform for young athletes.
Delhi's IG Indoor Stadium is buzzing with the gymnastic events, and the Khelo India Youth Game gymnastic events are taking place here at this arena. Right now I'm joined by Ashish Kumar, the first Indian to win a medal at the Commonwealth Games. Ashish, a very warm welcome, and the first Indian to win a Commonwealth medal for India in 2021. The games, the event that took place at the same venue. So tell something about that, how the memories are still you are living.
Let me tell you, to be very frank, when I know that the Khelo India Youth Game was happened in this hall, I was supposed to be, it was happened in warm-up hall, but when I know that this was happened in the main gym where 2010 Commonwealth Games was happened, it feels great. I just wanted to see how apparatus look like in the gym, and yesterday evening when I came here and when I see the gym, the equipment, it feels me a goosebumps, because I remember all the feelings from 2010.
How you look this event, the Khelo India, how it is helping to develop the young gymnasts of the India?
No, definitely. It's like the government giving so much to the young generation. Like when they introduced Khelo India Youth Games, they set up some few things like every player who are in Khelo India scheme, they get a 10,000 stipend every month. And all over India where they have Khelo India Academy, they have to train there free of cost. So I think it was a very great initiative by Sport Authority of India and Ministry of Youth Affairs. This kind of support government gives, and it is very helpful.
Definitely the important thing that here Ashish mentioned, that the government with the various scheme is just sharing the financial burdens of the athletes, and that's why they are relaxed, and that's why a great sporting environment is right there in India. With camera person Vimlesh, Narayan Singh, DD India, Delhi.
World football's governing body, FIFA, has approved the proposal of expanding the Women's World Cup from 32 to 48 teams from the 2031 edition onwards. The 48-team World Cup will adopt a 12-group format, increasing the total number of matches from 64 to 104. This move follows the decision of expanding the Men's World Cup in 2026 and also extending the tournament by 1 week. The 2027 Women's World Cup, it's going to be held in Brazil, will have 32 teams.
Football, the FIFA Council, after having thoroughly analyzed the question, decided today to increase the number of participating teams or participating countries in the FIFA Women's World Cup to 48. As of the edition of the FIFA Women's World Cup 2031, there will be not anymore 32 teams participating, but 48 countries from all over the world.
India kicked off their South Asia Football Federation Under-19 Championship title defence in spectacular fashion with a commanding 8-0 victory against Sri Lanka. India secured an easy win in their Group B opener thanks to a superb hat-trick from Danny Mithai Laishram. And Prashan Jajo scored twice, while Mohammad Arbash, Omang Dodam and the captain Singamayam Shami, they also scored 1 goal each. So in the other match of the day, Bangladesh had held Maldives to a 2-2 draw. The Indian athlete Mohammad Afzal broke the men's 800-meter national record at the UAE Athletics Grand Prix 2025 in Dubai. Afzal, he secured the second spot in the 10-man field with a timing of 45.61 seconds at the Dubai Police Club Stadium. The top spot was secured by Kenya's Nicholas Kiplagat, while South Africa's Christopher Swart finished second. Afzal's time was faster than the previous national record, which was held by Jinson Johnson, and it was clocked. Jinson Johnson, in fact, clocked 1 minute and 45.66 seconds during the National Interstate Championship in 2018. 1 minute and 46 seconds. In fact, so Afzal's timing would have been a timing of 1 minute and 45.61 seconds. We're talking about the 800 meters here. Clearly, it was not just 45 seconds, 45.61 seconds. I stand corrected. 1 minute and 45.61 seconds. That's all we have in this edition of DD India Live. Let's know your thoughts on the news of the day. And for those of you on the go, you can get the latest news from India and across the world on the DD India mobile app. That app is available on Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code and download it now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. My name is Mark Lynn. Thanks for watching. Namaskar.